morning to you. Welcome to the morning brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. It's a Friday edition and I'm super excited. And you can guess why. The Super Eagles, 1 down, 2 to go. Kola understands today.
Yes, indeed.
Just for today, by the way.
And can you see Jeffrey's shoes? Jeffrey's ready to kick some ball today. Green reigned supreme in Rabat, Morocco yesterday. Good morning. Welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and just as excited as Jeffrey, even though I didn't watch the match from start to finish, but I saw the very exciting review.
Yeah, well, I don't want to talk so much about it because there's a full segment dedicated to talking football today. Our anchor and sports correspondent will be joining us later on the show. But congratulations to the Super Eagles, 1 down. So let's see. How did it end with Morocco and DRC? I didn't check out. Okay, whatever happened between both of them is we and them. The next one then before we go to the Intercontinental Playoff. And then we're on our way to America's North America.
Oh, Jeffrey, you're there already mentally.
Yeah, oh, we cannot afford to miss this great opportunity. So big shout out to all the boys that put in their A game. It was a bit difficult, a lot of zone marking for our boys, but when we broke the ice, it was nothing to stop us. So Simeon with the brace and 2 goals from other Super Eagles players. And it was just a very happy moment. But there were things we spotted that we need to work on. But as I said, we will be looking at it in-depthly, analytically, as far as football is concerned, because just imagine the first time Africa will be having the highest number since the history of the World Cup. I think about 9 countries will be heading to the World Cup. Why wouldn't Nigeria be there? So I'm just praying and hoping. As Kelechi said yesterday, the most difficult for me will be this continental playoff. So after this, I'm hoping that one underdog that mistakenly found his way to the international playoff will meet us and we'll just show them the way home.
Hopefully we get another 4-1 against DRC when we play. But we express our deep gratitude to the Super Eagles for that astounding performance yesterday. Resilience is what legends are made of. I saw Osimhen miss some chances, which he later converted. Eventually when he scored 2 goals for Nigeria. Chidera Ejikwa, I hope I got his name correctly, and what's the name of the other one? Number 18, his name escapes me now, but it will come. Those guys did us proud with those goals yesterday, and they came in extra time, right, Jeffrey? So,
yes, so
it also speaks
regular time.
Consistency,
it was, we were leading up until 89th minute, until they leveled up. The opponent leveled up, and then we had to go to extra time where we needed to just consolidate our lead, and the boys rallied, and good luck to us.
Yes, indeed.
So away from football, we're going to talk extensively about football. I was telling Bukola, there's something we need to also talk about. There's an interesting development as far as the People's Democratic Party is concerned. Sometimes when you hear stuff, people say, we're laughing. We're not happy, but we just have to laugh. The reason, personally, I'm not happy these things are happening is the fact that if you understand how democracy works, especially in African democracy, it is unsafe to have an unstable opposition. So right now, we're literally scouting for opposition to stand up to the APC, whether it's PDP, Labour, ADC. Nobody seems to have their acts in order. At least these are the big parties, as they are called. Everybody's struggling with leadership crisis or the other. So the convention is tomorrow and Sunday, 15th and 16th, is the convention, national convention, elective convention, when they'll have new NWCF. I really can't wait for them to get this NWCF out of the way. The most confused, the most controversial, the most disorganized NWCF I've seen in this one. The chairman will say A, national secretary will say B, publicity secretary will say C, and the deputy national publicity secretary will say D. So, Bukola, what's going on now is that each side, there are 2 sides now, side A and side B, are holding on to court judgment and court orders. So one court judgment is a full judgment by Justice James Omotosho saying there is a process before a national convention as brought to the court by people like George Chana and the rest of them, to say, okay, you are supposed to organize ward, state, and all of the congresses preceding the national convention, but you didn't do it in some states, as well as, I think, a particular region, this Southeast region. So for that, this convention cannot hold until you do that. So they're talking about in Section 82 of the Electoral Act, the Constitution itself, because there are 4 laws that guide a political party. The Ground-Norm, the 1999 Constitution, the Electoral Act 2022 as amended, the party's Constitution, and INEC's regulation and guidelines. Those are the 4 documents that guide political parties' activities. Well, the judge agreed with them and said, look, you haven't done what is supposed to be done. Go and do it. That is a substantive judgment. Well, the other party went to an Ibadan High Court. That's a big question. Does a High Court in a state have jurisdiction to even hear that kind of case? Anyway, they gave a judgment, an order, not a judgment, an order, a ruling, I think an interlocutory injunction, pending the hearing of the substantive case to say the convention can go on. While we're still dabbling with that, Sule Lami, the former governor of Jigawa State, went to court and said, my case is different. I was not allowed to contest in this election. And the rule is simple when it comes to consensus. Consensus is that everybody will be cleared, and then if you choose not to contest again, you have to write and say, I'm not interested in contesting. So it becomes consensus. Well, he said he wasn't given all the fair chance, and the court agreed with him, Justice Peter Lifu. So there are 3 judgments that I have listed. Now, all of this judgment is what everybody's holding on to. Now, the funny thing is that an appellate court has to set aside or dismiss. So everybody kind of has a right because it's coming from a court. That's why they are insisting that a superior court, because all of them are courts of coordinate jurisdiction. 2 are on the same case. 1 is a different case altogether, but all related to the National Convention. So we're now seeing Samayamu and his people sponsoring adverts on TV and on everywhere say the convention is not holding. Then the subcommittee of the convention, they say it's not going ahead. We're going ahead. What a confusion.
You remember ahead of the NEC meeting, that was how we're getting conflicting reports about whether the NEC meeting will hold or not. One group would say, this NEC meeting would hold. Another group would say the NEC meeting would not hold. But the point is, while the PDP is unable to put its own house in order, where the questions are even being asked about what happened to the Bukola Saraki-led disciplinary committee of the PDP. So when that has not done its work, or it has not been allowed to do its work as the case may be, then they open the door to the outsider to help them manage their affairs. Unfortunately, so many of them had different courts to go to, to seek jurisdiction. Ex parte order from one court and then another ruling from another court. Party supremacy. You were talking about Ground-Norm, we were talking about the Electoral Act, we're talking about, the constitution of the party itself. When the party is unable to put its own house in order, abide by its own rules, then it has opened the door to the enemy and all sorts of interferences in its process. And that's why we're here. And you made a very profound point at the start of your commentary, which is, where is the opposition to put the feet of the ruling party to the fire? That's why we're asking the PDP this morning, where is the opposition? I recall when the APC was in the opposition, they did a job of work, holding the PDP accountable with statements, with in fact, historical records, dating back to what the party had done before. Exactly. So we call on the PDP and indeed all other opposition to step up to the game, put their house in order. If, there must be, which is very unlikely, if there must be some form of consensus before the 15th and 16th, which is tomorrow. The PDP should please. I
can tell you for free, there will not be consensus. And technically, everybody has a right to say and do what they want.
The umbrella has been divided into 2 right now.
So it is technically correct to say, whether that court has jurisdiction or not, that's another matter altogether. That decision will be set aside. You don't just say, no, I will not disobey the court order. I will disobey the court order. So the argument everybody is having.
But parties can decide to withdraw all court cases and go home.
Which party?
And talk to
There are people in the PDP that want the PDP to collapse. There are people that want the PDP to survive. There are people that are in the PDP that are, let me use the word cautiously, that appear to be pretending that they love the PDP because of their own personal ambition. And I don't quarrel with politicians for interest and ambition. That's why they are in the game. But just follow the rule of law, whether it's the Constitution, the Electoral Act, the regulation and guideline, or even your own. As simple, what was difficult in appeasing Sule Lamido? What was difficult? The man said he doesn't want consensus. Oh yeah, allow him to go to the ballot because money is going to flow. This weekend, money is going to flow.
Because we had the former national vice chairman of the program some days ago, and
you know we have two chairmen now. There's a factional chairman.
Yes,
there's Damagun. There's another.
Yes, the one on the side of Ayahu, and then the other one on the side of Makinde.
That's National Secretary to Damagun has now joined forces with the new one. So this Ayahu side, they're the pro-Wike end. Makinde's end is the Damagun end. So it's now Makinde, Damagun, pro-Wike, Ayahu. Ayahu is the henchman. That is the, the henchman of the end.
Jeffrey, let's get serious this morning. What do we have?
Oh boy.
We'll mainstream that conversation as we always do. But what do we have this morning? We continue with our reflections on allegations of Christian genocide in the country. Yesterday, we spoke with one party or one group, as the case may be. Today, we'll be reflecting alongside talking to the Muslim groups. And so the president of Miyetti Allah joins us this morning. And of course, another development worker who's based in the north, he also joins us this morning on the program. But there's more. Jeffrey.
Absolutely, there is more to talk about on the program today. World Diabetes Day is what we're spotlighting on. It's a good conversation. We're going to x-ray the challenges of persons living with diabetes and preventative measures you must take to avoid getting into all of the challenges that comes with it. So on one hand, we'll talk with the people dealing with it. On the other hand, how you can prevent yourself from getting, and then we'll talk about cost medication and all the intricacies that the economy has played on medication as far as patients of diabetes are concerned on the program today.
And that's not all. We'll review on the fantastic performance of the Super Eagles yesterday in Morocco and the chances of the team ahead of the next game with the DRC and then the Intercontinental playoffs. So stay with us for that one. Austin Okonakpan, sports anchor, joins us from the UK.
It's going to be an interesting conversation that I'm looking up to. I'm looking towards as far as the conversation is concerned. But hey, we'll take a break and we'll come back to bring you what the dailies are saying in just a moment. It's a Friday edition, so let's chill. Welcome back, Mr. Dayo Akintobi, Public Affairs Analyst, joins us. Mr. Akintobi, thank you so much for coming on the program and good to see you from afar.
As always, it looks quite different from afar than being in the studio, I tell you.
Absolutely.
A lot of different.
I know you enjoy being in the studio, but hey, we have to do what we have to do nonetheless.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get started with this Nigeria. There are two stories I want to highlight, but let me start with the first one. And that has to do with this FCT land matters. The main story leads with Obasanjo Danjuma never used soldiers. Obasanjo Danjuma never used soldiers. Wike speaks on Abuja land dispute, says he has no problem with the military, but only against impunity. He should have brought the matter to my attention, says Defense Minister Matawale. What do you make of this?
Well, it just goes to show the tension that exists between military authority and civilian authority. Of course, the military is not in power at the moment, but by virtue of their training, by virtue of their position in terms of the security architecture, the military is not anyone to be trifled with, and they also have their own internal rules and processes. So there's an issue of respect without a doubt, but at the same time, the government has its own job to do. So there's got to be a way where the government can achieve its objectives at the same time without stepping on toes. So I think a lot more caution could have been applied. This could have been handled a lot better and still achieve the objectives. I will say one thing that, in spite of the way it seems, Minister Wike has done quite a lot in Abuja in terms of getting it back to the original master plan. Many of us may not approve of his methods. Many of us may think that he doesn't exhibit enough decorum. But the truth is, from where I sit, among all the politicians who are in office today, he is one of those that you know where he stands at any given moment. He's not a politician that talks from both sides of his mouth as we are used to seeing them do. And I think, as a matter of fact, that he's one of the shining stars in the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration in terms of achievements. I've been to Abuja a few times myself in the last 2.5 years, and there's a world of difference in terms of how that city looks, in terms of its environmental sanitation, in terms of its adherence to the master plan. I think he's doing a stellar job, but I think he could also be somewhat more conciliatory, diplomatic. He mentioned that, well, in the past, when there have been disputes like this, or when there have been issues, people like President Obasanjo have approached him, T.Y. Danjuma have approached him, and that this retired Chief of Naval Staff, Gambo, if he had just reached out to him and they had discussed it, there would have been a more conciliatory settlement in terms of the dispute. That's not to say that the Admiral would have got his way, and it's not to say the government would have got his way, but he's saying that it was an issue of protocol, that he's just doing his job and he's not looking at who the parties are, that would be showing some sort of preferential treatment. The question we should always ask ourselves is, after what the armed forces are doing for us, especially at this time, do they merit or deserve concessions that are not available to the average Nigerian? And that's the sentiment that everybody's using, is they're putting their lives on the line. And I know, for example, that we do give them concessions in larger society. Many times they enter public transport, they're not charged. Many times when they want to fly, when they're going somewhere, they allow them to board first. I do think that Nigeria recognizes the fact that these people are sacrificing a lot for us, and therefore they deserve some sort of special treatment. So the question then becomes, is Minister Wike right in saying that he's just doing his job and not looking or paying attention to who it is? But if they wanted special attention or special treatment, they should have reached out to him. I think that governance requires a bit of subtlety, a bit of nuance, a bit of diplomacy, and that there's discretion involved. I don't think everything is black and white, and I don't think we should always be so rigid in terms of upholding the rules. I think that there are situations that require special attention, and discretion should be applied in those situations.
Before I leave this Nigeria, I said I'm going to highlight two stories. The second one has to do with FG suspending the planned 15% import duty on PMS. And diesel. This was supposed to be implemented soon, but perhaps reason fell through, and reason came to bear, and so they decided to maybe for now shelve this idea. What do you make of it?
Well, it's interesting. They didn't give us a reason for it, but about a month ago, I predicted. I first named this administration. I said it's the federal government of reversals, because we've had so many reversals in terms of policy that sometimes you ask yourself that, do they think these things through properly before they do them or before they announce them? Then there's the other thing, on the other hand, that the government can use to defend itself and say, we are listening, government. Yeah, we propose something, but when there's enough outcry about it, we step back. So there's something to be said for both sides. But the truth of the matter is that this was ill-advised. It came from the FIRS chairman as a suggestion to the president, and his reasoning was that, look, we want local production to be more competitive versus importation. We want to discourage importation, encourage local industry, generate more employment, and it's not revenue generation. But when I saw the statistics, I said, it will generate 1 trillion naira in a year. I said, what? This is a revenue generating scheme, no matter how you dress it up. This is the purpose, is to raise more money for the government. And Nigerians are hard pressed at this point, ordinary Nigerians, to say, we can't even give you one more kobo. We're already taxed to the hilt. We have no spending power. Yesterday, I saw the presidential spokesman say that inflation is down to 16 point something percent. And if you read all the comments, they say, we don't eat statistics. All the statistics are meaningless because when we go in the marketplace, costs are still high. But I'm not saying the government is telling a lie, but I suspect that what it is that our earning power just cannot cope with the prices of today. So we don't need any additional stress anyway. And this 15%, even though they said it wouldn't affect prices one way or another, it would affect what we pay at the pump. It would affect food prices. So it's good that they've stepped it down for now. I'm not believing that it's gone forever. I think it'll come back later, but at least for now, especially this festive season, where prices are going to go up naturally anyway. The government has reassured that there's supply, we're okay, we have enough, so nobody should hoard, no panic buying, none of that stuff. So it's a win-win situation for Nigerians at this point that has been taken off the shelf for now. The only other issue I had with it was that not understanding all the technical jargon. After sifting through it, it looked like what they were saying is that imported fuel is currently cheaper than that which is being produced here. So we have to put a tax on the imported fuel to make it at par with the one we're producing locally. That turns logic on its head to me. How can something you are importing, we are paying all the transport costs, you're paying this, you're paying, how can it be cheaper than that which we are making locally? I never understood that part. So I'm glad they've stepped this down. I think it's a good thing for ordinary Nigerians. It's a good early Christmas present, just like the Super Eagles gave us one yesterday. So more wins for us. More wins.
Of course, we're going to get you to speak to that again much later on. But Mr. Akitobi, your analysis, as always, causes us to think deeply about what's really happening in that particular space. For instance, why is it being said now that domestic refining capacity does not meet the nation's needs 100%? And we can recall that when the Dangote refinery was launched, the promise was that the refinery is able to meet domestic consumption capacity significantly. But what we're hearing now is 40%. Of course, we're going to mainstream that conversation because that's not the end to it. Let's go to The Guardian, which is making us, it's pretty much focusing on something that we do not often talk about. Look at the front page. Anti-Torture Act at 8. Victims bear scars, endure trauma as law remains on paper. And you see there, the policeman, very, very profound illustration, holding, a weapon on one hand, someone holding that hand, and then on the other hand, holding on to the symbol of the law. And then right under that, we also see Anti-Torture Act says no to custodial torture. So since the implementation of the law in 2017, I believe, it's just an academic exercise. Pretty much that's what we're being told, because torture is still going on. But where are you on that tool to extract information, particularly when we have cases of hardened criminals? Amid all of this, we're talking about fighting insecurity, there's banditry, there is insurgency.
Across the world, torture is a tool that is deployed by security agencies, intelligence agencies, law enforcement agencies, but it's not openly condoned. You won't see it actually being done publicly, but it is actually done as a law enforcement or coercive tactic to extract information. That doesn't make it right, but it is no different from other weapons or other strategic methods by which law enforcement seeks to extract information for the security of all. At one point, even in developed America, they were using something called sodium pentothal, which is known as the truth drug, which if they're trying to get information out of you and you don't give it willingly, they will inject you with this truth serum that'll make you start running your mouth and saying everything you know. At some point, the Supreme Court in the United States ruled that unconstitutional and illegal. But that didn't mean they stopped doing it, because let's ask this question: who polices the police? Because the question you asked now was that it's an academic exercise, is on paper, it's not being followed. But remember, the only people that can enforce judgments or that can see that laws are being upheld are the law enforcement officials. So what you're trying to do is take away a tool that the law enforcement officials find useful in fighting crime. It's useful to them in fighting crime. You're not trying to take it away, and you are saying that they are the ones that should enforce the fact that it's been taken away. The police will police itself. So who do you have to enforce that law? So it's on the books, which is good. So the only recourse to victims of torture is through the legal process. But I don't think you can stop it happening in the prisons, in the dungeons, in the detention camps. I don't think so, because law enforcement wants answers at all costs, whatever it takes. And wherever it verges up on human rights, at that point, human rights are secondary to national security. If we believe that a terrorism suspect, for example, is withholding some information that could save a potential terror attack, we'll do any and everything we can to get the information out of him or her, as the case may be. But modern conventions abhor such things as terrorism. They feel there are better ways to do it. But in Nigeria, for now, where we're at, I think the only recourse for victims is go to court. That seems to be a favorite saying. It's a cliche in Nigeria now, that whenever you don't get justice or whenever you are unjustly treated, your best recourse is go to court. I don't know what we can really do to strengthen enforcement of laws, especially where they concern the enforcers of the law themselves. But the court is the last vestige of protection for the common man, and that's where we should recourse to. I think it is good that we have it on the books. So internationally, it looks like we are conforming with convention and acceptable global practices. So it's good that on the surface we don't accept it, we don't want it. But I won't kid you, it'll continue to go on in the dungeons of the secret police. They will continue to do that to fight crime.
That's a big statement you've made, and it will be subject to all kinds of investigation. Let's stay with The Guardian. A couple of stories before we leave The Guardian newspaper to other stories. And all of this concerns is of national importance. Let's begin with the academic sector. ASUU may resume full-blown strike on November the 21st over selective implementation of pacts. You can see the picture of the national president of ASUU. They are alleging that the government is not staying true to their word by implementing strictly what was agreed, and they are defining it as selective implementation. So the government better brace up for another industrial action. What do you make of this?
There's always been that issue about, since the 2009 agreement was reached, that each and every time a strike is threatened, they will throw them a carrot just to get them not to strike or to call off the strike. But the government has never had an honest, fully committed objective of giving ASUU everything they want. In every negotiation, there's a bit of give and take. So ASUU is not going to get everything it wants ever. At the same time, government is not going to get everything it wants ever. But I remember that this last strike a few weeks ago, they said they were shelving it temporarily, and that if they didn't get what they wanted, they were going to go back and strike fully. So they are exercising that right now, because they're saying government is selective in its implementation of all the things they asked for. So the question I ask is, even if they've given you some, do some of the things they've given you rise to the level of satisfying some of the demands? Some. Let's not be greedy here, because look, there are so many sectors begging for attention. Resident doctors are still crying about their own as we speak. Pensioners are still not getting their benefits as we speak. So ASUU, the educational sector is just one sector of many. And how much can government juggle? There's limited resources. How do we share them among the various competing interests? If we give all to one person, we don't have enough to go around the others. Education is as important as health. Health is as important as infrastructure. Infrastructure is as important as environmental, climate change, global warming. Everything requires attention and requires resources. So you can't give everything to any one entity. So I think ASUU should lower it, especially in light of the noble task that ASUU does, which is raising the leaders of tomorrow, raising the next generation, teaching them how to think critically, how to develop our country, how to solve problems. That's what tertiary education is all about, teaching you how to think critically and solve problems. So if we're giving short shrift to those who will move Nigeria to the next level, then we risk a developmental crisis. So whatever it takes both sides to do to be able to resolve this without strikes happening, I think they should both lower their sights a little bit. In every negotiation, there's no winner takes all. Never works that way. No winner takes all. You have to be willing to compromise. You have to be willing to sacrifice. I don't know the details of their negotiation, if ASU has been too rigid or if it's the government that's been too rigid, but they both need to, for the sake of our country, for the sake of our youth, for the sake of our progress, they both need to lower their sights a little bit, come back to the negotiating table, work out something that's a compromise. Government won't get everything it wants, ASU won't get everything it wants. The answer is somewhere in the middle.
Let's find that middle ground. That's a key word here. Let's go to Daily Independent newspaper. The papers there's so many things to look at in the papers, but inflation for, I think, September was about 18%, but they're projecting it to be about 16.29% to ease. I think those numbers should be out tomorrow. 15th is always 15th noon is always when we get the numbers for the previous month. So that perhaps this is projection, but tight policy to remain. So what this simply is saying is that interest rate is still quite high. I think the last time the CBN, the MPC held, whether they will ease is a different matter altogether. So that's why there's always an argument with this data, because when it comes to other clients, there are two numbers that the monetary authority looks at to be able to make a decision on which to chase. So one of those numbers is the inflation number. If inflation is high, of course, they will tighten interest rates to taper inflation. But if the employment number is low, they would naturally ease off. And sometimes when this is low, they look at which is worse than the other to know where to go, whether to expand the economy or to tighten it. But sometimes we see lack of concurrence between monetary policy and the numbers coming out from the MBS. I've always had a problem with they increase the basket. That's no problem because it reflects today's reality. But my challenge has been the COICOP reallocation or weightage that can affect the numbers. We also know that when it comes towards the end of the year, with what is happening to the dollar and what is playing out in global economy and the strengthening of the naira, and maybe food supply is supposed to ease. But how do you reconcile some of these numbers with the lived-in reality?
Well, of course, the Nigerian refrain today is na statistics we go chop. You know, it's easy to reel out the numbers from the basket and say that inflation is easing. Okay, it's proposed to drop to 16 point whatever by tomorrow when the numbers are released. But until we get to a situation of zero inflation, or we get to negative inflation, which is deflation, to where prices are dropping below what the regular price is. A drop in inflation simply means that price increases are not increasing as much as they were last month. It doesn't mean prices are coming down. It just simply means if you paid 100 for it last month and you paid 150 this month, it's gone up by 50%. So next month, if it now goes to 175, it has dropped, because if it kept the same pattern, it should have gone to 200. But it's gone to 175 means that the inflation rate has reduced, but the price has not come down. So it's a bit of statistical jiggery-pokery where, you know, if you don't know how to analyze the numbers properly, you will assume that when they say inflation is reducing, it means prices are coming down. No, not so. So prices are still high in the market. Cost of a bag of rice has come down a bit, but it's not gone back down to pre-2023 numbers, you know. So likewise, fuel at 9.23 today costs much more than it was pre-May 29, 2023. So we are still in a situation of high prices. The main issue is spending power. That is what is affecting us, not as much as the price increases. Spending power, the money in our pocket is buying less, and wages are stagnant. No, even with the minimum wage as passed now has not made up the difference between the price hike versus the increase in salary. So your money in your pocket buys less. That's the real challenge for this government. I think the CBN governor, Minister of Finance, the president himself, I think they are pulling the levers from Abuja to make these things work. You talked about monetary policy committee, you talked about interest rates, unemployment rates. All these things are economically interwoven and all have an impact or an interlocking relationship in a way that affects the pockets of the ordinary Nigerian. So when you hear things like, okay, our foreign reserves are up, Naira is strengthening, inflation is down, our GDP is up. You hear all these fancy, lofty figures being thrown up in the air, but you don't see the impact on the pocket or the well-being of the ordinary Nigerian. So more focus should be placed on local industry, local manufacturing, reducing unemployment, whatever it takes to encourage industry. If it's to give tax holidays, free land, low interest loans from the Bank of Industry, whatever it takes to get Nigeria employed and employed well. At this stage, I don't think we should be talking about minimum wage. I think we should be talking about living wage, because minimum wage, you can't live off it. So we should progress to trying to get ourselves to a living wage level as opposed to a minimum wage. And I think let's give a bit of patience and benefit of the doubt. I think those who are the managers of our economy, I get a sense that they are competent, and I have a feeling they know what they're doing. But perhaps the rot was so deep that digging us out of it is a Herculean task that will require some time and some balancing, maneuvering, juggling. Let's see how it goes.
That's fantastic. Mr. Akintobi, thank you so much for your views and expertise. We'll continue to interrogate numbers. At the end of the day, what we're looking for is for the good of all. I always say that some persons are above the waters. Even if a sachet of water gets to 1,000, some persons will still afford it. But we need to think of the vulnerable persons. That is the best way to assess how well or not how well the economy is doing. I understand these numbers. I understand the macroeconomic environment, at least fairly well. But how it impacts the common man, as we try to refer to it, I think should be the way Africa and Nigeria should be measuring progress beyond the growth metrics that we always start. That is one direction, but we need to drill down even further so that our people can be happy. We may not be able to solve everybody's problem, but if the critical mass is happy, that's a fair, good progress. And everybody will elect anybody who does that for them without even campaigning. That's the best way to campaign, by the way. Daya Akintobi, Public Affairs Analyst, thank you so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure always. Have a good weekend, Nigeria.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll take a quick break. We started off this conversation a long time ago when the threat by Donald Trump, the President of the United States, talking about invading those terrorists and clearing them out for alleged Christian genocide. That word, Christian genocide, has divided the polity literally. It seems everybody agrees there's killing, whether there's genocide or not, has been back and forth. Well, the Christian community says, no matter what you say, we stand by what we said. But conversations on the other hand is saying it's not just Christians that are killed, Muslims are also killed, and you are familiar with this conversation. So now we want to hear from the Muslim community as to what exactly is their view, what are they seeing, what are they hearing, what are they not saying that people are not listening to. We'll come back in just a moment to have that conversation. Join us again.
Welcome back. And so as we start off, the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern and subsequent proposed military intervention has continued to gain international attention. Just yesterday, the AU chair was speaking in New York, and he says the complexity in northern Nigeria goes beyond what can be termed a genocide. He says there is no genocide in Nigeria. But of course, from the very beginning, we have stayed with this particular subject. We've had security experts weighing on it. Yesterday, the Christian community was here and they doubled down on the position that indeed Christians are targeted. There is a genocide, of course, with the other, Christian guests speaking to how Christians are targeted, but acknowledged also that there are killings of Muslims in Nigeria's north. So let's speak with the Muslim community this morning on the program. And joining us is the national president of Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, MACBAN, Mr. Baba Uthman Ingel-Zarma. We also have joining us virtually Mr. Salis Abdusalam, who is the founder, Displaced Women and Children Foundation, who joins us virtually from Jos, Plateau State. But Mr. Ingel-Zarma is right there in our Abuja studio. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Paula, and thank you for having me.
Let me start with Mr. Ingel-Zarma. There's been many reactions, shades of reactions to this particular subject matter, with many on different sides of the divide, either acknowledging that indeed Christians and Muslims are being killed, but others saying that Christians are being targeted. Where are you on this, particularly the official position of your association, which has been at the center of this time and again?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me. To start with, we have to know that the Nigerian crisis has a deep historical roots, including ethnicity, religion, and much later the emergence of farmer-herder conflict that had metamorphosed into cattle rustling, kidnapping, and banditry that we see today. The situation in Nigeria is complex, and it is essential to consider the multiple perspectives while talking on these issues, to consider the multiple perspectives when evaluating the crisis in the country and the question of whether there is a Christian genocide or not. Yes, there are reports and allegations on violence and persecution against Christians in Nigeria within the context of the ongoing crisis that is taking place in the country. But you see, in my own view, I don't see it as a Christian genocide because the crisis differ from place to place depending on where it is taking place. I have a lot of examples to give you. First of all, let me start with Taraba in the Middle Belt, because the Middle Belt is where we have, in the north, is where we have a larger Christian dominance. In some of the states of the Middle Belt, states like Taraba, Plateau, and Benue. Let's start with Taraba. There was a crisis that took place in 2017 in Taraba, up there at Sardauna local government in the Mambila Mountains, when over 720 pastoralists were killed in just 2 days. Who was responsible for that? Is the entire tribes in Mambila against the pastoralists, who are mainly the Fulanis. There was a farmer-herder conflict there, so the entire tribes, comprising Muslims and Christians, went after the pastoralists and killed over 720 of them. That is in Plateau State. Coming down to Gasol, where it is a predominantly Muslim local government area, there are a lot of killings of pastoralists. In fact, between the bandits as Muslims and the pastoralists as also Muslims. So when you consider these things, you realize that it's not a Christian genocide. Coming to Benue, for example, if you consider the crisis in Benue, it started for a very long time. The farmer-herder conflict has been there. We have been managing it up till 2014 when it started escalating to a serious situation. And even during autumn's time, when he was trying to promulgate the anti-open grazing law, I was there with him, was my national president then. We were there at the implementation of that law because we thought it's a law that will bring harmony in the state. We were there when the law was implemented, but even after that, we told him that you have to have an implementation strategy for the law to be implemented effectively. But that was not done. That was what escalated the situation in Benue. But because Benue is a predominantly Christian state, about 95% of the Benue population are Christians. So normally when there is a crisis like this, those who are in the majority will definitely suffer more than those that are in the minority. So there are killings on both sides, but there are more killings on Christian side than what it is of what was obtained in the Muslim side, that is Benue State. Coming to Plateau, you realize that Plateau has a long history of religious conflict. Far when even this Palmer Hada started, Plateau and Southern Kaduna has a long history of religious conflicts. But after the religious conflicts, the fight went into the forest. The indigenous started to go after the pastoralists. Ever since, they have been killing pastoralists under the guise of the settlers that are not interested in the state. So the issue of Benue is settler indigene syndrome that is taking place in Benue, in Plateau. It's not a religious conflict. There was a religious conflict in those years, but much later it became farmer harder. Then it became going after all those that are not indigenous, that are considered to be non-indigenous. Even if you are there before the major tribes that are there, you are considered a not indigenous. That was the reason why we saw a bus carrying people from Abu's area who were coming into Mongo for a wedding. They were all waylaid and killed and assassinated. And the entire bus was killed. So you see, the situation in Plateau is not a Christian Muslim issue per se, because if you consider what is going on, what has took place in Plateau, where even travelers are being killed while passing through Plateau, we have a lot of such cases that happened in Plateau State. Before the coming of this governor, he is from Mongo. Mongo has never had any conflict throughout the time of Jang, throughout the time of Lalong. Mongo has never had any conflict. The Muslims and the Christians were staying peacefully there. But immediately when this current governor became the governor of the state, Mongo then started to go after the strangers who are in Mongo local government. That was what made Mongo what it is today, a center of conflict. But before the coming of this governor, it has never been a center of conflict. So if you see the situation in Plateau, it's more of settler indigenous issue. Leaving this aside, if you say it is a Christian genocide, take Borno for example, where we have a ratio of maybe 70-30 or 60-40 Muslims versus Christians. The Muslims are in the majority. The Boko Haram that took place in Borno State over the years resulted in killing of so many Muslims, more than the Christians. About 80% or 90% of those killed in Borno are all Muslims. But what was highlighted is the issue of Chibok girls. Chibok is a local government that is dominantly Christians. So you see, and coming to Depchi issue, if you see what took place in the Depchi schoolgirls that were taken away by the Boko Haram, you realize 90% of those that were taken by Boko Haram are Muslim children, not Christian children. So it's never, I consider it not to be a genocide against Christians. If you insist on calling it a genocide, then let it be a genocide against humanity in Nigeria, including both Christians and Muslims. Coming to areas like Zamfara, Katsina, Sokoto, this is a predominant Muslim communities. The conflict that took place between Katsina and Zamfara today, the number of deaths and casualties that are recorded in Zamfara and Katsina today are more than the entire number of deaths and casualties that are recorded in the Middle Belt. I'm telling you, in just these two states, the number of deaths that are recorded there is twice the number of deaths that are recorded in the whole of the Middle Belt. Wow. And this is a predominantly Christian, it's a Muslim community. Muslim versus Muslims. Muslims as farmers and Muslims as bandits, killing the same Muslims. So, as far as I'm concerned, I see this crisis as a resource-based crisis. I don't even look at it as an ethnic tension. I look at it more as a resource-based crisis that is being exacerbated by the population outburst, that is being exacerbated by the climate change and poverty and so many other things. So this is my view, as far as I'm concerned, is far away from a Christian genocide. Right. If you insist on putting it as a genocide, it will be best be called as genocide against humanity, including both Christians and Muslims.
All right. So many things to unpack from what you have said, so many things to follow up on. But just to add that on the last bit of your assertion that those who have been killed in the Northwest alone are more than the entire killings that have taken place in other parts, being Muslims, we would have to subject that to data. But how important that will be is another kettle of fish entirely, because what is more important is the fact that anyone is being killed in the first place. Let's go to Mr. Salis now. Mr. Salis, I'd like you to respond to the same question, but you are in the, you are reported to have worked a lot in Borno State, to be precise. And Mr. Ngazarma has also spoken to what is happening in the north. Help us put in proper context what you make of this subject, and with reference to what is exactly happening in Borno State.
Oh, well, good morning, Nigeria. Thank you for having me. If I'm very audible, I would like to also correct the impression that I have worked more in Borno State. Yes, I was born and brought up in Jos, Plateau State, and I am 61. I have been involved actively in peace building in the last 23 years. So I have a very knowledgeable position of what happens around Plateau State, more than I do about on Borno State. Borno State, yes, I have gone there for interventions, and what my colleague discussant has mentioned about Borno State is the way it is. Number one, Boko Haram is a nomenclature. The Nigerian government, state governments, and the media are responsible for the escalation of a lot of this crisis. Now, why do I say that? The media created the name, made the name Boko Haram popular. They have their Arabic name. So now, because they say Boko Haram in Hausa, it means Western education is a sin, Boko Haram, and everybody is stuck with it. So automatically, when they say Western education, the narrative there is, where did it emanate from? Emanated from the missionaries, emanated from the Western world, where Islamic practice is limited. So they now give it this impression, this narrative that it is, Islam against Western education. So these are some of the narrative being pushed by the media, when they say Islamic jihadist. It's derogatory. Jihad on its own has a meaning. So who created the name IPWIS, IPWIS? Who created the name ISIS? So the media is responsible for some of this, pushing some of this narrative and making it popular, and then forcing it on the throats of people, to make it look real. So coming back to happenstances, we must be able to know. For instance, I asked the question, when you say Middle Belt, what is the geography? You find that the first president or the first leader of Middle Belt is the Group Captain Dan Suleiman from Adamawa State. What makes it middle? So Middle Belt, a lot of people see it as, a belt around the northern Christians. And we keep pushing some of these narratives. Our fear as peace practitioners is the position of religion becoming stronger than the state, where you have a sitting president being asked to squat, a whole president of Nigeria being asked to squat before religious leader just to get endorsement. We're giving religion too much prominence in the country. That is why when Donald Trump said there is Christian genocide, what happens to the mind of Muslims is America is coming to fight against anybody that is not a Christian. How do you expect Muslims to feel? If America is coming to help us deal with criminals, because you have them you have Muslim criminals, you have Christian criminals. So where Plateau State is concerned, there are 3 dangerous R's, very dangerous: revenge, retaliation, and reprisal. Government policy has made those three R's, to permanent those 3 R's. The media has made permanented those 3 R's. Now, the example he gave about Mongu, this is now going to be based on happenstance. Though facts might not be law, but this is based on happenstance. He mentioned Mongu, for instance. The moment there is any problem between a herder and the local indigene, every Muslim around that environment pays the price. Now you will see international donors, high-powered military delegation, the first lady of the country will visit to empathize with the victims. She will be received in an IDP camp by a pastor. Now, the state government will not ask, where are the Muslims that also suffered the same losses and damages? The same human and material losses. There was a time that such Muslims were camped in Tafawa Balewa in Bauchi State. Nobody talks about them. So that kind of pain does not encourage healing. When you hear a state executive say it is genocide, so these kind of narratives have been pushed. The media is not investigative. They won't ask. Now, in the whole of this, what happens to the Muslim casualty? These are the kinds of things that actually brings about reprisal. These are the kind of things that does not permit forgiveness. And these are the kind of things that does not make healing possible. So when there is a reprisal, it is celebrated. But when there is anything happening to a non-Christian, because the typical Muslim attitude is they believe when somebody dies, his time has come. That is what God has, or the time God has ordained. Then they just bury the dead body and forget about it. It is not celebrated. And the corpses are not kept to prepare for media engagement. The corpses are not kept for any ceremony. The burials happen instantly. And then the international community and Nigeria does not really know these kinds of casualties, take place. So these are some of the narratives we need to correct.
Okay, if
we must grow above our sentiment.
Okay.
For us to be able to proffer, neutral solutions.
Okay, sir. If I may come in, can you hear me? I like the point you raised, which is why we brought both of you here, so that we can hear the other side and balance the conversation. I think we were with Bishop Wale yesterday, who had highlighted a few things and has also admitted to the fact that even Muslims are killed in this whole process. I think at this point, everybody has come to the realization that we have a big crisis on our hands, whether it's Muslims or Christians that are being killed. Now, perhaps from the Christian angle is the fact that the perpetrators are coming from what they call the Muslim extremists, whether it's Boko Haram or ISWAP or the definition you gave. The media's job is quite simple. We see facts, we report. That you can't blame us for our work. Whoever is driving an agenda, that is their own kettle of fish. We see the facts, we report. We're not going to say somebody died when nobody died. So if nothing is reported, that's why they said unreported. We use those terms, unreported. So sometimes it is believed that when 10 die, it's actually 20. So, but we can only report what is available. But we're not here to debate agenda or no agenda. What we're here to deal with is to solve a problem on our hand and to make us recognize that we have a problem. Christians are being killed. Muslims are being killed. Now, where I'm going to with my question, and I'm staying with you for a moment, is the fact that perhaps the Christians are saying two things are happening. One, extremists, Islamic extremists are the ones pushing this and killing us and even killing their own people. So that's why they are maybe looking at it as a genocide. On the other hand, there's issue of killing, clearing, and grabbing land. Now, Donald Trump has said it's Christian genocide, is coming to attack the terrorists. So my question is, going forward right now, is it the problem of the Muslim community not reporting their own casualty, or they are being ignored? And how can we resolve this problem to solve this problem once and for all, so that our people, whether Muslim, Christian, or those who don't even have any faith, are not killed? I stay with you, sir.
Okay, now we need to get this very clear. And then when we live in denial, for instance, almost every ethnic group, I said almost with modesty, almost every ethnic group has a militia. And we don't want to accept it. When anything happens to any ethnic stock, you will see the militia in action. So right from our cultural groups, we have to address that aspect. They might be called warriors of that tribe. They might be called the youth wing of that tribe, but it is a growing concern. That's number one. Number two, we have the issue of juvenile miscreants in the north. And a lot of them provide the pool from the Almajiri practice where bandits recruit. We cannot deal with this situation just based on palliatives. No. We cannot deal with this situation of the Almajiri based on palliatives. No. We must find a way of reforming that practice and abolishing certain parts of that practice. We're talking solutions here now, you know, and then we must be able to look at any crisis view it with a neutral lens. We know that the media will report what it sees, but the media also has the responsibility to ask questions. We can see these ethnic groups here. What happens to the other ethnic groups that also stay here? So we're looking at solutions here now. Now, for headers, those that are involved, the Fulani race must rise in unison to curb criminality amongst their tribes. Because the Fulani as a race is an endangered species today. Some of us cannot clearly, it will interest you to know that there are certain places I go to carry out interventions on the plateau. My name will change to Silas. Because if I reach there as Salis Muhammad Abdul Salam, there's a possibility I will not come back. Despite the fact that I'm going to provide, you know, humanitarian services. It is that bad. There was a particular time in Jos especially where even accidents, road accidents had a religion. You hear somebody who say, don't mind them, it's one Muslim man that knocked this boy down. Don't mind them, it's one army that Even road accident, we will not examine the traffic law. No. First is the religion. So these aspects need to be corrected if we have to move forward.
All right.
We cannot continue to judge everything, especially in the North, based on religion.
All right. Mr. Salis, we've stayed with you for a bit. We understand your scrutiny or you calling out the media, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we just must put it also in proper perspective. The media does not manufacture names for groups. For instance, there's a newer sect in Nigeria's northwest, which is Lakurawa. The media didn't manufacture the name. We go out to get reports, and it is the report that we get that we put out there. Is there a need for more investigation? Indeed, yes, there is a need for more investigation. But that's why we're having this conversation, to expand the horizon and to find out what exactly is happening. And this has been very constructive. Let me come to you, Mr. Ngezarma. You have had to say quite a lot about the complex nature of this, and you've tagged it more a competition of resources, not even ethnic and definitely not religious. But I'd like you to speak to the expanding nature of the conflict, if indeed it is economic, because beyond Nigeria's north, we've seen over the years, particularly under the last administration, farmer-herder crisis in the south, in which many killings were also recorded. And more often than not, herders attacked the aggressor in this. I'd like you to speak to this on the one hand, and the acknowledgement, even in some Muslim quarters, that there is an extremism context of this particular subject matter. I'd like you to address those two aspects of the conversation.
Well, before I answer your question, I need to speak a little about what my other speaker said on the role of the media. I will challenge the media, and to agree with what he has said, I will challenge you people, more especially the channels television. Let's go to Plateau. A lot of crises took place in Plateau. Tell me how many times did you try to balance up those reportage that you took from Plateau State? Most of the times, the reportage in Plateau State are lopsided. They always report the Christian side without minding about what happens to the pastoralists or the Muslim sides. So the entire reportage of Channels TV in particular in Plateau State is all lopsided. Check your clips, go back to your clips and see how many times did you try to find out what had happened to the other side. And the ethics demands that you balance up before you go to the public. But most of the times, the public only hears one single narrative. So most of what is taking place about this genocide and so many things about this crisis, it is the issue of single narrative that is going out. Even what went to international community is the single narrative. It's always a single narrative because the media, as far as I'm concerned, some of the media are not doing their work as it is required by law, as it is required by ethics. This is one. The issue of farmer had an issue of resource base. Definitely the root causes of this crisis are resource based. The population is increasing and it will continue to increase against a land that doesn't increase. And the pastoralists who are practicing the primitive system of animal husbandry, roaming the wild looking for free pasture, because of the growing population, this one cannot be sustained. No more. Because the population will continue to increase against a land that doesn't increase. So these are part of the problems, and with challenges of climate change and poverty and so many other things, that was what exacerbated the conflict further. But I also agree there are some aspects of ethnic conflicts in some places, because the coincidence is always that the pastoralists being totally all 90% cattle ownership belonging to the Fulanis, belonging to the same tribe, and to some extent belonging to the same religion. So that is the reason why most of the times when this crisis happen, in places where it is, in communities where it is a Christian-dominated community, you can colorate it in whatever color you like. You can call it religions, you can call it ethnicity, because the coincidence is all the pastoralists are Fulanis and they all belong to the Islamic religion. So when there is a conflict between them and a particular community that is Christian-dominated, you can give it whatever coloration you like. But what remains the fact is a resource-based crisis. The Fulanis moving to find shelter, to find grass and water for their hearts as the only option for them to survive. We have never encouraged crisis because we are not criminals. We always, and we have never represented any criminality in this country because we are not criminals. We always represent peace building. We always represent understanding between the farmers and the herders. That is the reason why we have had series of engagements with a lot of interfaith people. We have had interfaith engagements with religious groups. We have even had interface with the CAN as the overall religious body in the country. We have had a lot of engagements with so many international bodies, Mercy Corps, Interfaith Mediation Center, Search for Common Ground, Center for Humanitarian Development. You said itself, we have had so many engagements in our effort to mitigate peace, to mitigate the conflict in our efforts for peace building in this country. So this issue of genocide is far away from a genocide as far as I'm concerned. It's a crisis that is affecting each and every part of the society. To me, it can be termed as a sheer criminality that is taking place, because even the insurgents, the Lakurawas who are just coming in, they go to communities, kill people, loot, and go away with their things. So we see it as a sheer, sort of sheer criminality, more of than a Christian genocide in this country.
It's a good thing that we've had this conversation. You know, we all need to come to the negotiating table. In fact, we can look at you know, the edition of the program yesterday where we spoke with the Christian community and this one, and see how we can solve this problem. But Channels Television has a proven track record of commitment to upholding the ethics of the profession. And this segment is evidence of that fact. Yesterday we spoke with the Christian community. Today we're speaking with the Muslim community. During one round of killings in Plateau State, I recall that we also spoke with the Fulani community via a phone conversation. That is documented. We can go back and look at some of our reports. There is evidence that we also speak to the other side in our reports. But we must thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. I really do wish we had more time to explore and exploit this, but there'll be other opportunities in the future. We've been speaking with Mr. Baba Othman Ingel-Zarma, National President of MACBAN, who joined us from our Abuja studio, and Mr. Salis Abdusalam, founder, Displaced Women and Children Foundation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through on this segment.
Well, thank you very much. We hope there will be longer opportunities moving forward so that we can profile solutions, you know, being on the field, that can correct this narrative and then take us back to where we were, you know, living together.
All right. Thank you very much. And that exactly is the objective. We'll take a moment now. When we return, it's World Diabetes Day. How much progress have we made in the last 1 year in, you know, treating this particular challenge? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, we're talking World Diabetes Day today. In just a moment, the professor, the president of the association, that's the Diabetes Association of Nigeria, will be joining us to have this conversation. Bukola, I do remember clearly we try to have this conversation as often as possible to mark the day, to recognize the challenges of persons living with diabetes. I remember I was watching a video, I think by a Procure doctor, yesterday or 2 days ago on TikTok or one of the social media platforms, where he was warning against some of these contests they do online, food contests where people will just eat potpourri of things. You're eating, I don't know, so many things. You're eating all kinds of variety all at the same time. because it's a competition. You're eating egg, you're eating a bar, you're just eating just a bar.
Packing it.
You're just eating anything. You know, so it was warning the fact that as much as you're creating content and getting all the numbers you want to get or win prizes, that for the people that put up the challenge, you should just be careful, because some of the things that he was explaining in that particular video can lead to diabetes, talking about release of insulin and all of that. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the technical thing here, but basically it was saying that because of the rate of consumption, what it can do to your body. You know, they give them time, say eat this in the next 5 minutes or 1 hour or whatever time it is given, and all these popular things. So for you, say it's cruise, it's vibe. Don't vibe yourself to the grave. That's what it was saying. So, but World Diabetes has talked about the issue of the sugar in your blood system, and this awareness, this today is also to create awareness for you to go and check your blood sugar level. Fasting, especially the fasting one, that has to happen, I think, before 9 o'clock or 8:30.
Before you have had breakfast.
Yeah, but the best time is between when you wake up, maybe 5, 6 to like 8:30. You may get the best of results, or between 9 from the ones I have done. Try to check that your blood sugar is at the right level. The doctors have their measure as to what is right and what is not right. So, but we try to use today to create that awareness as much as possible to say, okay, for those who are sufferers, we empathize with you. Because I remember when we had a conversation about how expensive their medication. So the gentleman that was here is one of the leaders or one of the ESCO of these associations. He had told us that before now, what could take, let me just use a hypothetical situation. He said he spent about, let's say, 9,000 for his insulin or so, but now he has to spend about 66,000 because of, you know, what the economy looks like. So there was a time his family had to make a decision, him staying alive or the children going to school. So they chose him staying alive, so his own children had to stay back at home for him to be able to afford
that was really
the medication. It was a very heartbreaking moment for me on the show that particular day. Literally almost messed me up that a child will not go to school because of 66,000 to be able to cope with the medication of their father. So that's why we're mainstreaming this conversation. It's not every day we're talking politics. These are the issues: medication, healthcare, and all the reforms that are necessary to make sure that if somebody is suffering from a particular disease, we may not at this point be able to question how it got there, but it's already here anyway. How do we help the person to manage life and live a more productive life while the person is dealing with the challenge?
And it's a good time to talk about sugar-sweetened beverages as well. You know, Aproko doctor would say that the only thing he takes in terms of liquid is water, and you know that features prominently in a lot of his content. There's no better time than now to talk about that, you know, to remind us all of the need to, you know, be just a little more cautious about what we take in. I've attended conferences, you know, when an analysis was done on, you know, the sugar level that goes into this beverages, you know, and it is, you know, very, very concerning when you know that 14 cubes of sugar has gone into your favorite SSB drinks. And so, you know, as time goes on, when one matures, advances in age, one needs to be more cautious, more intentional, you know, about choices in food, choices in lifestyle, choices in drinks, choices in taking alcohol. And this is the time to mainstream that conversation, and of course also empathize with the community of those who are dealing with diabetes. And you know, doing regular checks is equally important, your sugar level, you know, such that you can learn to reduce the sugar level. We understand that our guest has joined us now. Jeffrey, you have this one.
All right, let's bring in Professor Jofo, who is the President, National Diabetes Association of Nigeria. Prof, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Fantastic. Tell us why this day is important.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. Today, the 14th day of November, is globally marked as World Diabetes Day. This day is very, very important because it's a day to bring to limelight the scourge of the disease called diabetes mellitus, which is currently ravaging the world and has become a global epidemic. The World Diabetes Day has been in place since 1991, started by the International Diabetes Federation, and it became a United Nations Day in 2006, when the United Nations, after their 61st resolution, recommended that diabetes should be tackled as a global epidemic, because if it is not done so, it's capable of wrecking global economies and is a very important militating factor to achievement of Millennium Development Goals. So Nigeria and the Diabetes Association of Nigeria, which I represent, is a member of the International Diabetes Federation, affiliated to the World Health Organization. So we join the rest of the world on the 14th day of November every year, like today, to celebrate World Diabetes Day, to pass the message that diabetes mellitus is now a global epidemic and Nigeria is not left out. And the health challenges associated with this disease and how it is very important to prevent diabetes in order to reduce deaths or mortalities arising from this condition.
Prof, let's talk about some data. So walk us through the data that I know you're quite familiar with. I know it's almost like a broken record, but I'm sure data is updated. Let's talk about data in terms of the prevalence. How many persons in Nigeria have diabetes, and what is the level of prevalence of diabetes in the country? And maybe you can also help us with the distribution in terms of demographic.
Thank you. The data is estimate, and is estimated percent. These 5% of local studies that were conducted in Nigeria under years. Ideally, Nigeria is supposed to have a national survey communicable disease by any survey in this country, and we don't have a national diabetes registry. So we're working on these estimates, and if you check 5.7% of a population of over 200 million, we estimate that about 11.4 million people are living with diabetes in Nigeria. And this prevalence, this figure, represents only about half to 1/3 of the actual number of people living with diabetes in this country, because majority of people are not yet diagnosed because they have not been screened. Well, in terms of geographical distribution, the study, the meta-analysis suggests that the South region has a higher prevalence of diabetes, while the least is the North Central region. This may be as a result of, differences in diet, level of physical activity are yet to be identified. Thank you.
So let's talk about SSB, which I, was speaking to earlier on. And we know that besides your organization, there are other development organizations that are in the vanguard of advocating for an SSB tax. What is the update on the advocacy for the increase in SSB tax? And what levels have you achieved in requiring accountability for the SSB tax to be properly channeled? For instance, to go to helping diabetes patients, for their treatment and care in terms of affordability.
Thank you very much for bringing this very important question on SSB. You see, the SSB, of course, which stands for sugar sweetened beverages, constitutes very important, part of one healthy diet that is, one of the risk factors for development of diabetes globally. They increase blood glucose, they overwhelm the pancreas, they lead to obesity and insulin resistance, and all these things can lead to diabetes mellitus, and in fact, other non-communicable diseases like hypertension, cancers, and all that. So we are going in the forefront of advocating for reduction in the consumption of SSB in Nigeria. Yes, you are right by saying that there is a coalition. We have a coalition of sugar reduction stakeholders who have been engaging government. We have been engaging government for years, and that engagement brought about some success in 2021, in the year 2021. When Nigeria passed a bill, the SSB tax, and then by around June 2022, Nigerian government started deduction of 10 naira per liter on sugar sweetened beverages. So, which, even though it was a good start, but it is far too small to make any impact on, consumption of sugar sweetened beverages in Nigeria. But to make matters worse, last year, 2024, the current federal government stopped that deduction, claiming that they want to stabilize the economy. The information we got is that they were told that it will lead to unemployment, of Nigerians who are working in all these SSB industries. But we know that that is not true. All over the world, SSB taxes have been implemented in developed countries, in Asia, in America, in Europe, and it has not led to any unemployment. Instead, it has improved the health of the populace, and by reducing the per capita consumption of SSB. Now, what we're advocating as done is that the Nigerian government should, as a matter of urgency, bring back the deduction of the SSB tax. This thing should be revived and even increased to about 200 naira per liter, because even the 10 naira was a far cry from what is recommended. The World Health Organization recommends that at least 20% increase in the cost of SSB, should be implemented. So medium to plead with the federal government to please resume the SSB tax deduction. That is number one. Number two, review it upwards. We are recommending 200 naira per liter. What that means is that a 50 cl bottle, by the time naira per liter, that means a 50 cl will now be costing 300 naira. So that is enough. It may be enough to discourage people from consuming SSBs. Unlike the previous taxation, which was 10 naira per liter, which means that a bottle of soft drink will just attract additional 5 naira. So from 200 naira to 205 naira, it was too negligible to make any health impact. So that is number two. They should, the federal government should resume the deduction of SSB tax, and then review the.
All right. I hope the network gets better. I hope the network gets better. I have one more, which is equally important. It's about treatment and care. I understand that we had a conversation sometime last year with one of the executives of one of the health agencies, and he did say that diabetes is covered under the health insurance scheme. I wonder how much of that is a viable option for members of the Diabetes Association, particularly patients who are suffering from diabetes, such that the cost of treatment and care for diabetes patients can be reduced. How many, what's the level of interest in taking up the NHIS scheme and awareness amongst your members?
Well, the national health insurance coverage, as you may know, is still very poor, in this country. The last estimate is just about 5% of Nigerians are covered. In rural areas, this is almost non-existent. So it has not really translated into, a significant improvement in diabetes Yes, some that are currently covered under national health insurance scheme, but not all of them. There are still very many anti-diabetic drugs, that is number two. Consumables, for instance, the blood glucose monitoring meter and the strips, which have also gone up, their prices have gone up exponentially, making it difficult for, a diagnosis, because routine screening depends on testing the blood glucose using this meter and strips.
Okay.
All right.
All right, Prof. Thank you. Yeah. Apologies, Prof. The network distortions seem not to allow us here all your thoughts. But I think the message is clear. Highlighting today, creating awareness, and some of the things that have come through you, it's important for all of us to be aware, and for those who are sufferers to manage the situation properly, and those who are not affected to ensure that they don't get in, given the burden and the challenges that is being faced. But I must thank you, Professor Joffa Ogu, President, National Diabetes Association of Nigeria. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Welcome back. So let's talk sports now. It's raining green and white, and probably a high morale in the camp of the Super Eagles right now. Let's review that match yet again. And our sports anchor and correspondent, Austin Okunakwan, joins us virtually from the United Kingdom. Hello, Austin. It's good to see you again.
Sporty greetings to you. Good morning. Good to see you. Always a delight to be on Morning Brief.
Yes, indeed. I like sporty greetings. So, Austin, what was... I imagine that you were on the edge yesterday, particularly when we were waiting for the goals to come. What was it for you? Was it approved bonuses and allowances, or was it an underestimation of the Super Eagles that got us that amazing result?
I think it's the shared determination and resilience that we seem to be seeing in the team now. They're building it. They're growing with confidence. There was probably a reawakening right after match day 7 of the World Cup qualifiers. The Super Eagles would have looked at themselves and said, in a group that's got South Africa, Benin Republic, Rwanda, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe, that after 7 matches, they had recorded just 1 win, and so they were really bothered, and then they started feeling the pressure because everyone started asking questions. So when they demolished, dismantled, destroyed Benin Republic on match day 10, you could tell that it was a different Super Eagles entirely. Now against Gabon, I knew Gabon was going to come out, and play a bit of negative football. So the Super Eagles couldn't really express themselves. But when you concede a goal in the 89th minute, and in extra time, you show the sort of character that the Super Eagles show, then it means that, yes, there's something new happening in this team. So just imagine if the leadership was right, if we didn't get that Tuesday saga of unpaid bonuses and allowances. Look, that money, Bukola, was nothing to these players. I know them. I speak to a lot of them. The money we're talking about here was just $168,000 for bonuses and allowances from the last 2 matches against Lesotho and Benin Republic. Victor Osimhen will pay that money and he won't even feel anything. That's money they give to people to buy suya. But they wanted to prove a point to the leadership that this has to stop. You need to be responsible. You can't keep doing this, So they had to take that stance because they know when they finish playing the qualifiers, they qualify. This same thing will happen up to the World Cup, and these guys that claim they are the leadership of the Nigeria Football Federation, they don't care. They just want to go travel. When we win, they will start, looking for ways they will go to Aso Rock to make more money. So let's commend the resilience of the team. Let's commend the talent in the team. Let's commend their fighting spirit, their patriotism for coming out to give Nigeria that sort of representation that we deserve. So congratulations to the team and Nigerians all over the world.
I'm super excited to have the result. In fact, when we were talking with Kelechi yesterday, Kelechi was saying 3-0.
3-0.
Maybe he's right eventually when you do the plus and minus. I was not interested in number of goals. I just wanted half goal if it will count. I just want this playoff to be over, and I want to go to America. That's the end of the game, because in football, the most important statistics is the final score, not ball possession. Because it could be against the run of play. But I'm saying that to say that you mentioned there was a bit of difficulty, and I noticed that difficulty because I was watching the match. I was like, is this so much zone marking? At some point, I was looking for Victor Osimhen. What exactly played out that delayed the goal to come in? Because we need to do this analytics to be able to prepare for Sunday.
Football can be funny. It's strategic. It's big on tactics. It's also a lot of match reading and analysis. You need to look at your opponents and see what they are doing. You don't want to, come out and be so expressive and then they catch you on the counter. And what suffered it the most during the qualifiers. It's the Super Eagles. They considered goals against Lesotho, considered against Rwanda, considered against Zimbabwe, you know, and a bit unlucky against South Africa because they scored an own goal and then they went on to, you know, equalize to get back into it. Against Gabon, Jeffrey, in this sort of match, you need to be careful. And yes, they were. Let's thank God that what happened with the video assistant referee went to our favor because that was a clear penalty kick. You know, I was pressing the necks of CAF and FIFA for giving us South African officials. I said right after all of the bad, you know, energy that South Africa gave to Nigeria during the qualifiers, why are they giving us Abongile Tom as the center referee? But Abongile said, Austin, I got you, no problem. You know, so we're glad with that. They were careful, and I think Ademola Lookman wasn't supposed to start that game. I would have gone with the same starting lineup that defeated Benin Republic. But hey, Eric Shell is the coach. He's with the team. He trains with them. He understands their mentality. He knows the players that are ready. When Akko Adams first came into the team, I criticized it, you know. But look at Akko Adams. He has played just 3 matches and he has scored 2 goals, 2 crucial goals for the team. So they wanted to read this Gabonese team, understand what they wanted to do so that they don't get caught on the counter, you know. And football can be funny. When they thought that they were going to just go on to win it, look at what happened. An unfortunate incident when Mario Lemina's shot struck the body of Bright Osai Samuel, deflected into goal. 90th minute, Jeffrey. You see what I'm saying? So when we're all big on let's come out, score goals, that game easily, if the sort of character that was saw from the Super Eagles didn't come up, it would have gone into penalties, and penalties is a game of lottery, can go anywhere. So I struggled to understand what happened in the second half when the team got back, because I thought, okay, after first half there would have been some match reading, they would have spoken to them in the dressing room. But I think Gabon also didn't really come out to play. They were just hoping on time and chance. You know, they depended so much on Aubameyang, but he wasn't getting the ball and he couldn't do much. I listened to Victor Osimhen saying that it was under pressure also. You know, this sort of big games, you just want to deliver. So pressure would definitely come in. At the end of the day, he missed a glorious chance. 12 minutes of stoppage time. Arguably the best striker in the world. It tells you that it goes beyond just reading a game. So he told his teammates, I'm sorry, I'll get back into it. I'll repay you. Boom. Extra time. Beast mode. Nigeria 4, Gabon 1.
Austin, it's always a delight to hear your analysis, your storytelling approach to your analysis of sports. Always a delight. But yesterday, Kelechi was saying something about how the African playoffs will be easier, you know, is the most difficult rather, and
That's
the intercontinental playoffs will be easier. I wonder if you agree with him. And against that backdrop, what are we to expect with DRC on Sunday?
I think it's also going to be a tight game, to be nervy. I was always saying that I wanted Cameroon because when you play Democratic Republic of Congo, they come with so much physicality. They also can play negative football. See what they did to Cameroon. They can box the game to that point that it will favor them. But that said, they've also been decent. They had a good run during the qualifiers. The 4 teams that made it to the playoffs did just enough, you know, to get here. But the Super Eagles must be careful. No room for complacency. Go out there, business-minded. Go out there, result-oriented. The same thing I keep saying, I want to see that same performance that they did against Benin Republic. As early as the 3rd minute, boom, score a goal. Start making your opponents wonder what's going on as they're trying to get back into it. Hit them again, you know. That's where you take control of the game, because now you cannot afford to blink. All of this hard work from September when they've been pushing, because it's a lot of mental stress for this team. And we can now see that it's not just the talent that they have that can do it. Leadership has been messing them up big time. So against Congo DR, NFF, if they want their bonus and allowances now from this match that they've just won, pay them their money. Just make sure that you create the right environment for us to get the results. Let us just get into that mindset that we're going on Sunday to beat these guys. The FIFA rankings favor us now. So when we get to the intercontinental stage next year in March, it won't be much of a problem. They'll play, I think, 1 match. And then the countries that are there aren't teams that will, you know, shake us in any way. But we first need to beat Congo DR. And if you check it, when you play teams that have the underdog tag, particularly in Africa, it's difficult. I think that crowd also in Morocco, I can't understand what happened yesterday. Those fans using lasers on players, the Confederation of African Football should have them checked. Sunday's final, it's not just a final for the FIFA World Cup qualifiers. You can use it to sell African football. That said, the Super Eagles, they understand the mission. I love the unity of purpose in the team. I was trying to talk to some of the players yesterday. I said, okay, let me leave them. Let's not disturb them. I just said congratulations. Let them go focus. Go play the game against DR Congo. Pick the ticket to the Intercontinental Stage, Bukola, and then we'll come back and see what we can do with this team in terms of qualifying for next year's FIFA World Cup.
The hope is quite high as far as this is concerned. And one of the things I watched and saw yesterday, which I would like you to speak to me, I'm sure you saw it as well. At some point, I don't know where we're losing balls, we're not controlling it as much as possible, incomplete passes. What do you think was happening there?
It's pressure. Jeffrey, it's tough, particularly what they've been through. It's mental stress also. I keep saying it that we do not know what these players go through. See Ademola Lookman, for instance, what he's going through with Atalanta. Thank goodness that they've sacked that silly coach that tried to, oppress our player. Is out of the way. Look at Victor Osimhen and what he's got on his shoulder. When you're in the media every now and then and everyone expects you to deliver, I think Wilfred Ndidi was also trying to get into it. And he also has that leadership role as the captain. So the Gabonese team, they try to do the low block from the middle so that the Super Eagles cannot, string those passes. I think we also missed Moses Simon in that first. I would have put Moses Simon on the bench. As I said earlier, if he's not broken, don't fix it. That lineup against Benin Republic did a great job. So he brought in just 2 new players, but they got into it eventually. Yes, those misplaced passes could have also worked to their advantage. See, for instance, when they got back into it, look at how we got our first goal. I'm sure the Gabonese guys thought they could build from back because we were, of course, losing the ball, and they were trying to see how we can get to Aubameyang, and the defender didn't, read it properly. Akko Adams instinctively took the ball, beat the goalkeeper, and he scored. One chance, one goal. Just imagine if he didn't take that chance. But, I don't want to stay big on the tactical play and the things that this team didn't do right. I just want to commend their character. Jeffrey, it's difficult to win a football match in extra time. You're not just winning it big time in extra time. You're scoring 3 goals in extra time in a playoff match where Gabon would have just complained negative football, pack the ball, block everywhere, and take it to penalties. And then we'll start, calling on God to help us with that lottery. So I think they were reading it. I think they were trying to get into it. They were dealing with also a lot of pressure. That crowd in Morocco, somehow, some way, they were not really in our favor. I don't know where this beef is coming from, but I want to commend again the character, the resilience, the determination that this team showed. And we'll wait to see if they will double it on Sunday, beat DR Congo, and we move on.
And we're grateful. In 60 seconds now, I know you mentioned Akko Adams. For you, who were the outstanding players in yesterday's match? And I think I watched the review anyway, but I was looking for Captain William Troost-Ekong, and I didn't see him. In 60 seconds.
He didn't start the match. He came on as a substitute. As it is now, I don't think he has a starting place in the team. He's been through a lot of criticism. My sources also tell me that he was the one that was really pushing, with that Tuesday saga. So probably things aren't, as it is for him. But he came on and he did give a good showing. Standout players for me. Number 1, Wilfred Ndidi, captain, fantastic. He didn't do anything wrong. He was giving me those drivings I always talk about that I want from Alex Iwobi. When he gets the ball, he's always pushing forward. He gave Victor Osimhen that first pass that he didn't, convert. He gave Victor Osimhen another one. He gave Chidera Juke that lovely pass that he converted. So it was outstanding. If I'm not picking Wilfred Ndidi, I'm going for young Benjamin Fredericks. This one is wake-up call for us. We need to reflect. that the future is young. He's just 20, got into the team in June, and now he's bossing a starting shirt, and he's doing so well. Bukola, it gets sweeter. That guy is a product of Nigeria football, the NNL and the Nigeria Premier Football League, the same league that was destroying the system and structures. There are more than 100 Benjamin Fredericks that we can bring out of the country, but because of leadership, we're not doing that.
All right, Austin, we could listen to you on and on. We must anchor at this point, and thank you so much. And we look forward to speaking in the same breath and wavelength on Monday after Sunday's match. Austin MACBAN is our sports correspondent and anchor who has joined us on this conversation from the United Kingdom. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you, Bukola. Thank you.
Yes, Jeffrey, are you kicking some ball after the show or after today's work?
Well, it depends on where I find myself. But at the end of the day, I leave that to the people that are playing. You see, Austin said that $150,000 is suya money. It's even less than suya money for those boys.
Yeah, right.
They just want to prove a point. What is that to them?
Indeed.
But we wish them the very best. Sunday is what we're looking out for so that we can head out to the continental playoff. But thank you so much for your time. The entire week has been great with its own drama. We look forward to a greater week in the coming days and the rest of the year. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Bye-bye.
I look forward to telling better stories, pleasant, positive stories. Do enjoy your weekend. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.